Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We are back on the dev server and it's time to have a look at a new light tank that is coming to America. This is the RDF LT and it's another very high BR light tank which has a crazy reload, pretty decent mobility, and the major thing about it is the survivability, which is really good. Now this vehicle follows along the lines of the HSTV-L, the high survivability test vehicle, but this one is the Rapid Deployment Force Light Tank, which is around. They are built around the same ideas, but they are pretty different in certain ways that make them functionally different, but will be around the same BR. This vehicle being a premium is kind of a shock, if I'm honest, and also it is at rank 7, so you'll be able to research all of the tech tree from rank 1 to 8 at maximum vehicle research efficiency, which is quite nice, and you'll be able to run it in all of your high tier lineups since it is at 11.7. So what's the differences between the RDF LT and the HSTV-L? The HSTV-L has a bunch of smoke grenades on the turret. You can see it has 8 overall. The RDF LT has none. The other part is, you may have seen, the turret's completely different too, whereas the HSTV-L has quite a high turret with a bunch of these different optical points. It also has some very angled 25mm armor that gives it pretty good effective thickness. This one is still 25mm, but it's more of a cone shape, and even though it's kind of flat, it doesn't give as much protection compared to it. It's an aluminium alloy setup, where this one is the 5083. This one is the same, but it just doesn't give as much protection, so kind of sucks in that way. The setup in the center or the middle of the vehicle is pretty similar. So you have 2 people in the chassis, gunner driver, and then a commander in the turret. The HSTV-L has the same, but the commander has a little bit more armor and is also more to the right hand side. So the RDF guy is right behind the gun, which must be quite weird to actually see. I don't know if he's supposed to be there, but I'm guessing so. It just what a weird setup. You don't usually see somebody right behind the gun, but it does mean with this setup, if you lose the guy who is up here, you still have the gunner and the driver, so it's still fully operational. So just destroying the turret on this thing doesn't actually destroy the vehicle. Instead, you're going to have to, hit the hull of it, or you're going to have to do some other stuff to it to take it out. Now, the vehicle does have the updated DM. It has an autoloader, it has the FCS, it has the driver controls, the power system, and all this. So very similar to the HSTV-L, which also got its updated DM, I believe, last update. But the DMs are slightly different, and they kind of give us more information about the differences between the vehicle. The major difference that you may have noticed is the RDF LT can hold 60 rounds of ammunition, whereas the HSTV-L can only hold 26 rounds of ammunition. They have the same gun, they just have a different auto-loading carousel, meaning that the RDF just has way more firepower in it. They have the same rounds, so the XM885, which is one in War Thunder, which always gets a bad rap, but I mean, I feel like it's a generally fine round, especially with the reload of the 1.5 seconds, and then also you have a HEVT shell, which works pretty well too at the anti-air, since this thing nowadays gets access to the track IRS, or the IRST, which is quite nice, to be honest, on these types of vehicles. You can see here the gun stabilizer, the LWS alarm, then also the NVT attached there, and also for the commander too. The other part of it that is different is the mobility. So the RDF LT is 13.4 tons, whereas the HSTV-L is 20 tons. So the HSTV-L is a lot heavier, but also has a much better, beefier engine. The HSTV-L is a 650 horsepower engine, whereas the RDF LT only has a diesel 350 horsepower engine with a slightly different transmission too, meaning that the output is a lot worse on the RDF. So the RDF has more firepower, but it has less mobility and less survivability. So it's kind of like a rock, paper, scissors, and depending on how you generally approach this thing, it will do better or worse based on what you enjoy. And I feel like for this type of vehicle, there's not really too many huge issues with it, apart from that mobility, because around this BR, speed is king, and You have a lot of MBTs that have very powerful engines that fly about the place at really, really good rates of knots, and you also have a bunch of light tanks nowadays that with their spike missiles are starting to ramp up at the same time. With the RDF not having the great mobility, that's probably going to really hurt it in its setup. Now, it does have thermals. I believe they're not great thermals, but it does get tank commander and gunner ones. You, of course, get the drone, the laser rangefinder, the improved optics, and all of the other stuff that you would ever want from this type of vehicle. And the main thing that you get is support for the high BRs and the premium bonus. You can also run it with the clickbait if you already have that, so you have a 1-2 punch, and then also you could bring along some general premium high-tier planes if you wanted to, which have access to crazy ordnance too. So you can use the RDF LT to be able to get into CAS and dominate the game from there, like many people do at the highest echelon of the game. It also does have a singular machine gun, the M240, which is mounted coaxially as well, so you can run it there too. Now, I don't know whether this is going to be a GE Premium or a pack. My guess would be it's going to be a pack vehicle just because of how high BR it is, but at the same time, like it's going to be pretty pricey for what it is. And the simple thing is there's one which is already pretty much the same in the tech tree, so why wouldn't you just kind of grind that one out? Unless people want to just shortcut it and play this type of vehicle at the higher echelons. But I'm going to be brutally honest with you. This is not the type of vehicle that you want to skip a ton of stuff with and play this kind of by itself. You will have a very bad time in that because of the fact that you just do not have enough speed to fly about the place and, you know, be able to deal with all the enemies that are around. And it's not going to feel great while playing it. If you already have the clickbait though, you may have that already covered, and that could at least help with you. You can see the track IRST here, where, you know, it's going to easily be able to deal with any vehicle that's around. Like, no matter what the plane is, you know, the track IRST is incredibly powerful on these types of vehicles, especially with this gun and the HEVT. And looking at the gun depression, you can see it has a very good gun depression, just like the HSTV-L. The elevation is okay as well, so you can be that multi-purpose role that people need you to be. And you can scout and you can be mobile. You can see here the reverse, the 0 to -24 is very quick, so you can get in and out of dodge very quickly, which is nice. And, you know, you can easily see planes coming in that you can hit too. The major problem is the forward acceleration really isn't that much to write home about. Like, this is what we're going at 40 kilometers an hour, and I know that may sound really good, but go and play like a really mobile MBT or another light tank, and you'll realize that that isn't really that fast for a vehicle like this. It is also, you know, able to kick about the place. It's able to pen quite a lot, which is one of the strengths of the HSTV-L. As I said previously, I don't know why people struggle to do damage with this thing. Maybe in the past when certain armor values were a little bit weird, but nowadays you can pen pretty much through whatever, and with 60 rounds of ammunition, you are really able to put the cat amongst the pigeons. Just to kind of show you the thermals, it's Gen 1 thermals right now. Don't think that's going to change, so my guess is it'll be exactly the same. And yeah, you don't have any smokes, so you can't reposition, and at the same time you are going to get stuck in places because of the mobility of other vehicles. So if you are comfortable with high tier, I think you can bring this along, especially as a multi-purpose vehicle on a lot of maps. It will work very well. If this is your first vehicle to play high tier in, please don't do it. You will have a really, really rough time. So instead, I would get the clickbait if you really have to do it, or just grind out the tech tree like, well, the game intended. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.